Alright guys, welcome back. So we are continuing with our transformation segment. Today we're on part 3, which is rotations. So first we're going to start by defining what a rotation is. So a rotation is just turning or rotating an image about a fixed point. We're going to talk about what that fixed point is in a little bit. But for now, that's the textbook definition of a rotation. So rotations are rigid transformations, meaning that our size and shape do not change. Only the position of the image changes. And lastly, we measure rotations in degrees. Alright, and for this class, we're focusing specifically on 90-degree rotations, 180-degree rotations, and 270-degree rotations. Alright, so 90 degrees is going to be like one quadrant. So that would be 90 degrees, that would be 90 degrees, that would also be 90, and this final one would also be 90 degrees. Alright, 180 degrees is going to be two quadrants. So that's 180 and that's 180. And 270 is going to be three quadrants of rotation. So that would be a 270-degree rotation. So all of these rotations are what we call, or the phrase that we use, about the origin. Alright, so that just means that the place of rotation for all of these is the point 0, 0. So point of reflection is 0, 0. You can do rotations about point of rotation, not reflection. Rotation. You can do rotations about other points, but then you have to draw new axes, and we're not focusing on that. So all of our rotations for this class are going to be about the origin. Alright, so now we need to talk about clockwise versus counterclockwise, because you're going to get a degree measure and also a direction, and those directions are going to be either clockwise or counterclockwise. Alright, so clockwise is, if we think about a clock, it's going to go from 12 to 3 to 6 to 9 back to 12, and it kind of moves, we're going to say, to the right. Alright, so counterclockwise is the opposite of that. So if we're starting at 12 o'clock again, we're going to go in the opposite direction. So 9 to 6 to 3 back to 12. So it's kind of like to the left. Alright, so now we have our directions and our measurement. We're going to get into how we're going to visualize these rotations. So we're going to make a table. Well, I already have a table made, but we're going to fill in the table. We're going to do clockwise rotations first, and then we'll look at those counterclockwise rotations. So 90 we're going to do in red so we can keep the same colors. So when we have a 90-degree rotation that is clockwise, our coordinate points are going to go from x, y, which is how we usually write them, to y, comma, negative x. So this is negative and we read it as negative, but it really means opposite. So that means if I have a positive x, it's going to change to negative. If I have a negative x, it's going to change to positive. Alright, 180-degree rotation. My x is going to be negative and my y is also going to be negative, or again, opposite. Draw my arrows. All right, and lastly we have our 270-degree rotation. So I'm going to go from xy to negative y, x, where this negative means opposite. All right, we're going to do a really quick example of this. We're going to keep this in view so we can use it. So we want to do a 90-degree rotation clockwise, which means we're looking at this part of our table. So because we only know the coordinate points, that's how we're going to do this rotation. So I'm going to start by writing all of these out. So A is at 2, 3. B is at 4, 3. C is at 1, 1. And D is at 4, 1. Alright, so now I'm going to draw my arrows. And remember, we always write these as x, y. So for all of these, we're going to flip our x and y. So for A prime, which is what we name an image after rotation, instead of 2 first, it's going to be 3. And then instead of positive 2, I'm going to have negative 2. And that's where my new A prime is going to be. Alright, we're going to write them all out first, and then we'll draw them on our grid. Alright, so B prime, we're going to do the same thing. Instead of x first, we're going to put y first. So my y is 3, and then I'm going to write my x, which is 4. But we're doing the opposite, so opposite of positive 4 is going to be negative 4. And that's where my new point B is going to be. C prime, I'm going to have 1 and negative 1. And D prime, I'm going to have 1 first, then 4, but opposite is going to be negative 4. Alright, so now that I have those points, I'm going to start graphing them. So I'm going to start with this A prime. So A prime is going to be at 3, so 1, 2, 3 on the x-axis, negative 2, 1, 2. So this is my new point A. I'm going to label that A. B is going to be at 3, negative 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is my new point B. C is going to be at 1, negative 1. So this is my new point C. Remember, these are all primes. We're going to put that apostrophe. And D is going to be at 1, negative 4. So that is my new point D. We're going to connect our dots. Alright, so this is our rotated image. We're going to do this with points first because that's the easiest way to do it in this virtual environment. If you were in class, it would be a little bit different, but this is what we're working with right now. Alright, so we have our clockwise down, we have an example. Now we're going to move into counterclockwise rotations. So remember, our counterclockwise rotations are kind of to the left, and then clockwise are to the right. Alright, so we're going to start again with that 90 degrees. I'm going to do that in red again. So 90 degrees counterclockwise is going to be negative y, x. 180 degrees counterclockwise is negative x, negative y. And 270 degrees counterclockwise is going to be y, negative x. Alright, so I want us to look at these numbers really, well, not these numbers, these examples really quickly. So if we notice, 90 degrees clockwise and 270 degrees counterclockwise have the same rule. 180 has the same rule, whether it's clockwise or counterclockwise. And then 270 clockwise and 90 counterclockwise also have the same rule. So they have an inverse, what we call an inverse relationship, because they're moving in opposite directions. Alright, we're going to do an example of 90 degrees counterclockwise so that we can see how that's going to look different. So I'm just going to cheat a little and copy these. So let's duplicate that, and then we'll just move it over and save a little time. All right, cool. So these are my original points, and we're gonna do, there's my pen. We are going to do the same thing, except we're following this new rule now. So A prime is going to be 3 first, but we have to make it the opposite, so -3, 2. B prime, same thing, we're going to switch. So instead of having 4 first, we're going to have 3 first. We're going to make that negative as well. We rewrite that so it's a little neater. Followed by 4. C prime is easy. It's just going to be -1 and 1 because we have the same number. D prime, we're going to have -1 and then 4. And then we're going to graph all of those. So now -3 up 2, this is my new A prime. -3, 4 is my new B prime. -1, 1 is my new C prime. And -1, 4 is my new D prime. Just connect those points, and we have our new image. I wrote the A prime in the wrong spot. Alright, so now if we want to compare the difference, so a clockwise rotation moved us from quadrant 1 to quadrant 4, and a counterclockwise rotation moved us from quadrant 1 to quadrant 2. So they're both 90 degrees, which means we only moved one quadrant away, but we moved one quadrant in different directions. Alright, so when we're dealing with rotation problems, we're going to see 3 different types of problems. First one is going to be, they're going to tell us to perform the rotation and then identify the correct image. This is how you're going to see it in your exit ticket. Second example, we're going to find the coordinates after rotating, which is kind of the first part of what we were doing in the examples we just saw. And the last one is identify the rotation. This is tricky if you have open-ended, because as we saw, we have the same rules for rotations that are technically different. But for your exit ticket, you have multiple choice, so just pick the one that is correct. So for this first example, it's asking us just to find the new image, and we have 180 degree counterclockwise rotation. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to start by listing out our coordinates in D parentheses. Those are too close together. We're going to separate them. A, B, C, and D. So A is at 3, 4. We'll draw our arrow. B is at 4, 3. C is at 3, 1. And D is at 2, 3. I'm going to draw our arrows. Alright, so let's look at our rule. So -x, -y. So we're not flipping them, we're just making them negative. So that is going to change. I'm going to do it in green just so we can match that. So A prime is going to be -3, -4. B prime, -4, -3. C prime is going to be -3, -1. And D prime is going to be -2, -3. And we're going to graph those. Alright, so we're going to start with point A. We're at -3, -4. So this is my A. B prime, we're at -4, -3. So there's my B prime. C prime, we're at -3, -1. Right here, that is my C prime. And D prime, we're at -2, -3, and that's D prime, and we can connect our shape. So notice we moved 1 2 quadrants over. We did that wrong. 2 quadrants over. So 90 and 90 is 180. This is our new image. So you can do this on your exit ticket by doing the rotation like this, writing out the coordinate points, and then just match the image in the answer choices. All right, example 2. We are just finding the coordinates. So we're going to start again by writing out our points, A, B, and C. So A is at 2, 3, B is at 1, 2, and C is at 4, 1. I'm going to draw our arrows. We did 270 in blue. So 270 clockwise. So we're going to do negative y and then x. So we are going to flip. So A prime, 3 is going to go first, followed by 2, and then negative. B prime, we're going to do 2, then 1, make that 2 negative. C prime, 1, then 4, and make that negative 1. Alright, and we're done, and this would be our answer. You can graph it, you don't have to because we just want those coordinates. Alright, and lastly, we're going to identify the rule. Alright, so this is an open-ended, which means it's tricky because there's 2 possible answers we can get. So I can get this answer if I follow my image, I moved 90 degrees to the left, so one possible option is 90 degrees counterclockwise. But also I could have gone clockwise, sorry, that's clockwise. 90 degrees clockwise. Or I could also have gone 1, 2, 3, 270 degrees counterclockwise. Alright, so both of these are correct. If you have an open-ended, write both, unless it specifically tells you that it is a clockwise or counterclockwise direction that you're moving in. Alright, we are done for today. Make sure you do your exit ticket and make sure you get higher than a 50% on it. This is our last lesson of this year. Your final is next week, and I hope I see you guys soon. Bye.